Hello, hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Surviving to Thriving, where we address how to move from struggle and just barely surviving in a world that's too big, too fast, too much, too loud, to a place of calm and actually thriving as highly sensing people. I'm your host and high sensory coach, Tammy Gowen, and I'm so glad that you're here. This month, we've been talking about relationships, and today I have a very special guest with me to talk about families. Very excited about that. So before we get started, I want to do a little introduction for my friend, Emmalou Penrod. Emmalou is a wife, mother, grandmother, retired school teacher, family relationship coach with Healing Your Families, and also a show host on Win Win Women. And I believe that's the same name, Healing Your Families. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So her experience and values have taught her that families are the foundation of society. Couldn't agree more. She is passionate about making the world a better place by strengthening families. And I know from personal experience that she is extremely heart-focused and goes the extra mile to really help others. So I'm so excited to have you here with me, Emmalou.
Well, thank you, Tammy. I'm honored to be here.
It's so great to see you again. And I know, as a teacher, that you worked with many, many families and witnessed a lot of dynamics and things that worked well and didn't. And you have all of that to pull in to working with families now. So my first question for you would just be, how is it that you became a family relationship coach?
Well, it's interesting. Anytime you talk to an entrepreneur or a coach, when they think about when did it start, quite often it started when we were children. And I remember when I was 11 years old, just kind of watching my parents and how they interacted and learning a lot from that, being very observant. As a school teacher, well, I'm also as a mother myself, I learned a lot about myself, what was effective and what wasn't effective. And why did I keep doing the things that weren't effective? And then as a school teacher, I had the chance to observe families more from the outside. And as you pointed out, I primarily worked as a special education teacher. And so I saw those families that were very supportive and how that helped the student excel. And then the families that weren't working together as well, maybe not as understanding and accepting of their child who was different, and the harm that did to the student. So as I prepared to retire, I knew I wanted to start a business that would allow me to support families. And I actually tried a couple different business models before I came up with Healing Your Families. I think, we have the family we grew up in, the family we create. And then of course, we also have the family of our spouse or significant other. And so when all of those relationships are working well, we thrive, we blossom. Mm-hmm. And so I decided that's my goal. I want to provide useful information for families and help teach the tools and methods to keep those relationships strong and healthy so that children thrive and everyone thrives.
Yeah, indeed. And I love all of the information that you have, all of your background that you bring in and your personal experience in your own family. And I think it's so important families in general, right? They're, like you said, they are the foundation. And if we look at providing the best scenario possible for our children, then when they become adults and we're experiencing things with the adults around us, they have had that support, then they have all these tools to work with. And coming from that place of being supported and having confidence and knowing what's possible, it really reduces pulls down the barriers and provides such a richer opportunity, not only for that individual child, but for the community and the world as a whole. Because when people come from a place of wholeness, instead of being, seen as broken or somehow wrong, if we come from a place of wholeness, then everything functions better, and the world can thrive.
That's true. Absolutely. So, and again, being in the public school system, I did encounter those who feel that, well, the family is struggling, maybe we need to fill in. And my experience has been that schools can support parents, but it needs to start in the home. The teachers will just be involved in this child's life for a school year. Parents are in it for life. And I even take exception to that quote, it takes a village to raise a child. I would like to change it to, it takes a village to support the parents so they can raise their child.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are so many different places and arenas in the world that can be part of that support network. But yes, I think that family of origin, whatever that parental structure is, that's modeling and providing all of the learning environment, that is so key. And so, yeah, I think being able to reach out and give the support to the parents so that they can be supportive to the child is.
And one simple thing that anyone can do when you're out in public at a store or or a restaurant, and you see a child who's struggling, maybe having an outburst or meltdown, rather than giving those parents a critical look, accept the fact that, you don't know what that child's dealing with, what their neurological makeup is. Give them the parents' grace. Just assume that they're handling it in what they have found to be the most effective method. And rather than offering criticism or a cutting remark or an angry glare, if you see a veteran in public, quite often some people will say, thank you for your service. Well, parents are rendering a service to society too. They're raising our next generation. So if you can see they're struggling, be kind.
I love that. I mean, it's all about compassion, right?
Yes.
And, putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. And I talk about that a lot with, high sensitivity. That tends to be a pretty strong skill that we have, to put ourselves in other shoes and to have that compassion and that empathy sometimes of, actually feeling what, oh man, this seems so challenging. Look what they're going through. But yeah, having that extra lens of remembering, I have no idea what is going on here and what kind of a struggle this parent has had today, or, what things they're working on. So just being aware of having that level of compassion and trying to remove that judgment. I mean, if we can do that in all things, it's very effective to just say, oh, maybe I can sit back and be curious instead of judging. And then having that piece of compassion. So I love that idea. I'm going to have that in my mind as I go out and, shop or wherever I am out in public. And if I run into something like that, remember that comment that you just made. So I love that. It makes me think of times when, because this is another point, not that you'd necessarily say this to someone that you don't know, but you might just like saying, oh, I love that shirt you're wearing or something, even if you don't know that person well. But what I used to do with my sister and her husband, who I think are fabulous parents, and they were really good at holding true to what they just said, even if they were out in public. So the kids start screaming and say, okay, you have 3 seconds to stop screaming, or we're going out into the parking lot or into the car. And instead of giving in and whatever, they would actually follow through with that, stop what they were doing, take the child out and go through that whole thing. And so when they were doing things like that, I would always want to reward them and say, man, I notice these things that you're doing, and I just value your parenting skills. And I know that must be really challenging. And so I would appreciate what they were going through, even though I wasn't in that place. And so I think that can be helpful for anyone out in public also, even if things are, even, if you notice a child with really great manners, or they're doing something that's helpful to somebody or whatever, just pointing that out. And I mean, you might nod and smile, but like, wow, someone has taught you really great manners, or something like that, that can reinforce the parents so that they can take that with them also. But,
And that might be the high point of their day.
right.
Just anything positive. And like you said, what a cute outfit. What beautiful children. Just something. Quite often, some parents encounter almost this disapproval, like, how dare you have children? So to get something positive, just a thumbs up, smile, nod, just acknowledgement.
Or even a smile or nod in that understanding of, wow, some days are difficult. And if a child is having a meltdown or whatever, again, pulling back from that judgment and just giving the parent a nice little nod, like, yeah, okay, that must be really challenging.
Like,
I for you.
I hear you. I been there, or I understand. Just
Or
when our feelings are validated, we feel better, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I've talked, some about being a parent with highly sensing children, or being a highly sensing parent with non-highly sensing children, which can certainly be a major trigger, or a combination of both. And so though, when we're looking at high sensitivity, we do have certain needs that others might not have, or certain things, parameters, environments, situations that work better for high sensitivity. So it's not the exact same thing as like high or special needs, as you were talking about, like as a special needs, teacher, but there's a lot of overlap. And just some, nuggets of things that we can be aware of in terms of special needs, however we look at that, since that is part of your background. Could you talk about how some ideas, tips, things to be aware of, and how parents can support children who have special needs, whether that's something that's recognized in the school system, or high sensitivity, or something that just sets them apart maybe from the other kids in the family, or other people, other kids in school, or something like that?
Thank you. Yes, that is an excellent question. So quite often as parents, we wait for this child, the child's finally born, we're holding this precious new human being in our arms, and it's natural to kind of start, we want the best for them. We want to envision an amazing future. Maybe we'll even think, oh, he's so smart, he could become a doctor, or she could become an attorney, and we have these dreams for them because of course we love them. We want the best for them. And maybe we want them to have what we had, or maybe we want them to have what we didn't have. And this is understandable, but the warning is that if we have a preconceived idea of how this child should be, we have put them in a box, and it's not comfortable living in a box. When parents are able to just accept their child as they are, and this includes whether they have a disability that would qualify to get them under an IEP, whether they're just not like their older sibling, whether they're just not what we expected, or highly sensing, whatever it is, if we can accept, this is my child, I am going to love them no matter what. I think children need not just love, but unconditional love.
Right.
They don't have to earn that love. It's freely given simply because they are our child. And then, of course, that doesn't mean you're going to let them do whatever they want to do. I loved what you said about what your sister does. Sometimes we think, well, the way to make a child happy is just give them whatever they want. But, with their undeveloped brains, they don't know what's best for them. They would eat so much sugar, they got sick. So what they need is structure. They need this safe place where someone is looking out for what is best for them. So we create that setting, that structure for them, where we're focusing on their best interest. And then if we see this dream we had of them becoming a doctor or a professional isn't what they want, and we accept them, we love them. If they're, and there are a couple ways that we send this message to them. So, it isn't enough just to love them. We need to communicate this to them.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
So if we compare them to another sibling, another child in the neighborhood, that is sending the message, you're not quite there. You're not quite good enough. Why can't you be other than what you are?
I think one of the most damaging statements is, why can't you be like so-and-so?
Exactly.
No matter what it is. Yeah.
So obviously we're going to stay away from that. Now, especially when they're young, they're very literal, and we have the greatest influence on them. Think of it as programming a computer. If you compare your child's mind to a computer, as a parent, you are the master programmer, because they believe everything you say. If you say they have big ears, or they're stupid, or they're slow, they will believe it. They'll live up to it. But if you can point out what they do well, help them identify their strengths. Like you were talking about when we're in public and we see a family, do this with your children. You handled that really well. That is a beautiful picture. Just catch them being good, help them see you are really good at this. Help them identify their strengths. This helps them understand, I'm capable, I have something to offer, I have value, I have worth. And then once you've established that rapport, they're secure in your love, your acceptance. Then as they get older and they're going to need to start interacting with peers, with other adults, other people, they're more open to a little bit of coaching on what will help make that be more effective. But it needs to start with that unconditional love, helping them identify what they do well, accepting them as they are. I read something, the mother of a child with, I'm sorry, the term has gone out of my mind, but it's when they have that extra chromosome and they're mentally, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or like Downs or something like that.
Yes, Down syndrome, thank you. Who had a child with Down syndrome. And she described it as we were expecting this child, we were planning like a trip to Paris. And then we ended up going to Milwaukee instead, or something like that. That she learned to love it because it wasn't what she expected, but she learned lessons. And listen to your children. You will learn more from them. So enjoy the journey. Love that child. Enjoy the journey. And then as they get older, they may need an advocate. They may encounter a situation at school or somewhere where maybe they're being ridiculed or bullied, or maybe they encounter a teacher who does not understand and accept their uniqueness and is punishing them in some way, criticizing them in front of the class or giving them unrealistic expectations.
But if
So
you have that baseline with your child as a parent from the beginning, and they know that you are accepting and supportive, then they know they can come to you with those issues, right?
Spot on. Absolutely. Then, if you have that relationship with them and someone mistreats them somewhere else, instead of thinking, well, I probably deserve that. I probably, it's probably true what they're saying. They know it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And a child who has strong confidence in themselves is not easily bullied. We're bullied when we buy into what they're saying. Of course,
and if there's no support, it's really hard to stand up in those situations. And I'm thinking back to my nephew who's highly sensing, and I was, helping my sister along with that understanding process as they went along. But in the first 2 years of school, he just was exceedingly anxious, and he just did not like being there. And it, once she was able to say, hey, what is happening? And they had a really solid foundation, and she was able to talk with him about what his experience was. And he was just beside himself because of the way kids treated each other and the teacher. And there was really ultimately nothing he could do to make it, really ultimately change things. And so in support, my sister decided, well, what about homeschooling? And they did homeschooling for quite a while until he, felt like, oh, well, I've got enough of a solid footing. I can manage, high school. And so he went into a magnet school and did, super well. And that was all great. But if they had been in that situation and my sister was just like, oh, just ignore them, or, oh, you just have to stand up to those bullies, or, oh, that's just the way things are, kids can be cruel, and left it with that with no support, he would be in a very different place right now, I would think. So yeah, all the stuff you're talking about is so key.
That is an excellent example. I love that. That part of advocating for them is finding the best setting for them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it isn't the public school. And let's be honest, mm-hmm. Speaking from experience, public schools were designed to prepare factory workers. They're geared towards the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that isn't the best educational setting. Yeah. So looking at options, homeschooling, maybe a private school or a charter school, but finding the right setting for your child is one way that you advocate. Another possibility is having a good relationship with your child's teacher. There should be enough communication going on and a mutual respect that you can share. Let me help you understand how my child's mind works.
Yeah.
This is what he's going to respond well to. I know as a public school teacher, I loved a parent who would help me understand how to better interact with their child.
Right. Instead of everyone assuming that the teachers are just going to get everyone from every angle without that background, giving them something to work with. And then
your child, right. Your child may be the first highly sensing individual she has ever encountered. Mm-hmm. He or she. So, yeah. So first find the right best setting, and then communicate. If they're in another school, communicate with that teacher.
Right. I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's always communication, right? Whether it's within the family unit or everyone that's an adjunct to that child's, upbringing has to be part of that communication. So before we run out of time, I'm wondering if you could also talk a little bit about, so if you have two parents, two-parent family, and there's some challenges, some special needs, some, needing to understand high sensitivity, whatever it is, and two parents aren't quite seeing things the same way, do you have some little nuggets, some insight on, okay, so how do parents manage that if they're not quite on the same page?
Oh, thank you.
I know that's a big topic, but
it is. And unfortunately, divorce is common among parents of a child with special needs for that very reason. Right. They can't get on the same page. So they need to begin with their relationship. Now, there will be differences in any marriage. That's just part of life. But if they can agree that maybe we disagree about a lot of things, but well, two things. First, our marriage, the love we have for each other is stronger than any disagreement or any difference. If that one doesn't work, then we both want what is best for our child. And that one is easy. The disagreement may be about now what is best for our child. And they may need a third party negotiator, arbitrator, someone they both trust and respect to objectively review. Here are the facts. This is exactly, these are the struggles your child has. And here is the research on best practice. Then sometimes you need that third party. But if they can at least agree on either that their love for each other is so strong, they're going to collaborate for as long as it takes until they come up with a plan they can both agree to, they both feel good about. Either that, or if they're co-parenting, we may not agree on a lot of things, but we both want what is best for our child, and we are open to getting the best research and input, professional input on what is best for our child.
And like everything else, and as I had mentioned, sorry to interrupt, is that idea again of if we can step back from being judging of the other parent or the information that's coming in from somebody, if you've never heard that before and you're going, oh, I don't know about that, we're releasing that judgment and being curious.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Curiosity over judgment.
About it.
I love that. Yes.
What can I do with this? This is new, or, well, that's completely different than how I saw it. What are we talking about? Sometimes
we have to give up the idea that we have to be right. You know, if we're just, okay, I'm open to learning. Let's come at this with an open mind. Let's solve this problem together. Let's focus on keeping our marriage strong, on what is best for our child, and accepting that, you know, it's not like a sitcom where everything is tied up in a nice, neat package by the end of 30 minutes. It may take time. So you have an interim plan until you come up with a permanent solution. But both
love it.
Parents' viewpoints are acknowledged and respected.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
That's the key, whether it's the parents themselves or looking at the child, whatever, that, you know, having that respect, the compassion, the curiosity, and being able to say, oh, let's do our best here with what we've got and be open to how that can improve, but to provide that best environment for all of us. So, and as you mentioned, the within 30-minute thing reminds me, is like, we're wrapping up on our 30 minutes and we could talk, and I know for another hour or 2 hours, but it's been so great having you here, and it's always great to be here with everyone who's watching. And thank you for everyone for joining. Thank you, Emmalou, for being here. And as always, if anyone wants to just chat with me directly, you can find all of my information on Linktree with just my name. And Emmalou has her own show on Win-Win Women, and that is Healing Your Families. And you can reach out to her at healingyourfamilies.com. And if you have questions for either of us, please do feel free to follow up. And thank you so much for being here, Emmalou. So much appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we will chat with you again next week. We'll wrap up our month on relationships. Thank you so much for joining.